It's time for the Friday night, no social life edition of 810, the PretendRaceCars.com podcast. And Chris, it's 3 a.m. You walk into McDonald's, what do you order?
If I'm in McDonald's at 3 a.m., I've probably got bigger problems than whatever goes in me, because what comes out is going to be fucking a mistake regardless.
Anyway, I guess we should get on to more serious topics and not things that will come out in about 6 hours and leave you questioning your life choice up to that point. We don't got a lot to talk about today because it's a slow news week. Slow news couple of weeks, actually. So I'm going to get right into it with a kind of alternative topic I drummed up yesterday when we talked about it a bit just on our own time. And Grand Theft Auto 5 finally got released on the PC, and one of our buddies has been playing it recently, a whole bunch. I played these games primarily as driving games. I'm not huge into the shooting aspect or the gang warfare aspect, but these games have had pretty robust driving models. So, Chris, I'm going to open the floor for you on this one. What Grand Theft Auto game do you think had the best driving model, and why?
Well, I would have to say that probably GTA 5, and not even just because it's the most recent, but it does the whole vehicular manslaughter thing just so flawlessly. But if you want to get really technical, all it really does is stop and start really good. Fast, not fast. It's like an on-off button. In terms of going left and right, I'd say it does a good job at keeping cars feel pretty much planted. Maybe more so than a certain PC sim that costs a lot of money, which we'll get to later. I know you said you liked GTA 4's physics a little bit more than 5. You want to elaborate on that?
Well, it's like, I'll be the first to say that, yeah, I prefer GTA 4's physics, but I'm not going to sit here and say they're realistic. I mean, the supercars in that game, they had like the Lambo knockoff, they had the Ferrari knockoff and stuff like that. Man, it wasn't realistic, but it was fun in a racing environment. And I mean, for myself, I use these games as kind of a Midnight Club replacement, because Midnight Club was too over the top for me. But Racing Online in GTA was kind of like the perfect mix, you know? And the physics in GTA 4, tons of body roll, really messed up diff settings. What else is there? You couldn't hold a drift properly because of the way the tire, when you get sideways and start blazing the tires a bit, you couldn't carry the slide like you can in every other game. But the way you had to roll on the throttle and brakes, the way you had to really use the momentum of the car, it wasn't realistic at all, because like I said, some of the supercars drove like boats, but in a competitive environment against other people who were also trying to race clean or sometimes dirty in terms of GTA races, it was a lot of fun. And this extended over to the Lost and Damned expansion, which they introduced bike races in. And the bike racing itself, man, it's not MotoGP 14, so you know, don't kind of go into it expecting something like a milestone game. But me and my buddy, Tyler, we killed nights and nights and nights playing the Lost and Damned bike races. And, you know, I'm going to be the first to say, obviously, that it's not realistic. But GTA 4, I preferred. Now, 5, I mean, you might have more hours in this than I do. I noticed a bit of input lag, not TV related, but just a bit of control input lag. But the cars are planted. Have you done a lot of races in that, or no?
I have done some of the point-to-point races, and they're pretty decent. I mean, the better races are usually determined by the length, and that means you could get away from people and have less of a chance of getting rammed every single corner. I'd say the better races that I've had are ones that are longer, and that's primarily because the point-to-point races tend to get a little bit more spread out than the ones that go in circles, because at some point, if they're long, you end up overlapping other cars. I would say that the physics do a decent enough job for weaving in and out of traffic. Are we going to put it up against, you know, serious driving games? Absolutely not. But if you want to simulate vehicular manslaughter, it's second to none.
My biggest problem with GTA 5 when I had it on the 360, and I'm sure this is kind of carried over because it has more to do with the settings than the actual racing, but a lot of people, when they'd host racing rooms in GTA 5, at least when I played it, they always left catch-up on. And myself, I mean, if you put someone like me who's won 2 iRacing Series championships in a room full of guys playing GTA races, I'd get out front by a lot, and that's just, I mean, that's just my skill level at that point, I guess. But if you left catch-up on, I'd get out so far that the car would start downshifting on me, and this isn't something I could control. But it got really frustrating to race with people online only to get out by, a large margin. Of course, you're trying to rank up your character, build your stats up, make a name for yourself, or just do the things you do in an RPG. And when you're out by 30 seconds and all of a sudden the car starts downshifting, that pissed me off. Because nobody ever turned ketchup off, and it kind of turned races into a gong show. But one thing I did like is when you did get into a good room full of, people who cared, whether it was, a custom race where you could set up all the barriers and stuff, which I thought was really cool, or just one of the generic street races, they had drafting effects, and it was kind of nice when they worked, because even some of the freeway battles became really entertaining. I mean, it turned into NASCAR, and it made it, here you're playing GTA, which, like you said, it's vehicular manslaughter, and you're like, yo, I'm having these sweet drafting battles on the freeway, and this is a game that has nothing to do with this kind of stuff, and I'm really enjoying myself. It's just a shame I felt GTA 5 got ruined by the ketchup garbage.
Well, on that note, we could switch topics. Team Triple V released their first preview of F1 2015. What do you think about what they had to say?
Well, here's the thing. Codemasters, as I've talked about before on the site and in podcasts, they don't have a good reputation when it comes to kind of hyping up their product. I mean, we've heard since F1 2010 that it's going to be this hardcore sim, tire blistering, etc., etc., etc. Whatever the buzzwords are for that year they use in their promos. But Team VVV, they aren't wrong. And usually when they cover a game, even when it's something like Drive Club, which isn't very good, they can usually find a way to get the most out of it, and that's probably my preferred site that covers racing games other than us, because we have to say, we're good, because that's how we do things. But Team VVV is almost never wrong in their previews, and they say stuff about how the handling is instantly improved, graphics have a huge improvement, the AI has a huge improvement, which is something I've really disliked about the F1 games with Codemasters, that the AI... they're a total mess sometimes. They break at the wrong points. They turn in at the wrong points. Sometimes they're just not fun to race against, although they do have their moments of brilliance. But when Team VVV says, nothing but good things about their time spent with the F1 2015 preview, I'm in. I'm hyped. Count me in. Like, I'm jacked for this game. But, and it's a big but, and it's something I also pointed out on our site, the 2014 and 2015 F1 seasons have been absolutely garbage. Codemasters could make this the greatest F1 sim to this day of all time, and unfortunately the source material, the 2014 and 2015 seasons, have probably been the worst F1 seasons on record. You have Mercedes in 2014 destroying the competition. I mean, it was over at the halfway point, and in 2015 now you have possibly more of the same. Not to mention, the sport itself is dying a slow death when you have approximately 50,000 people going to the German Grand Prix last season, and the whole race gets canceled this year. Now, 50,000 people, hey, that's a huge number. I mean, that's a great sporting event, regardless. But when 50,000 people show up to the German Grand Prix in 2014, and 70,000 show up to Red Bull Crashed Ice here in Edmonton, which was a downhill ice skating competition held on the roof of the Shaw Conference Center, which in turn was impossible to get to, no parking, spur of the moment, no TV coverage, and that raked in 20,000 more people than a Formula One race. Man, it's going to be like a reverse Grand Prix Legends, where how GPL was kind of like this, modeled after the holy grail of F1 seasons. This is going to be like a reverse GPL, where it could be the best F1 sim we get of all time, based on probably the crappiest seasons of all time.
What's sad about what you said is that Dover, at the NASCAR Sprint Cup races, has been getting on average about 45 to 60,000 people the last couple of years, which is bad for their standards, and that would still be more than the German Grand Prix of last year, and that just shows you the pathetic state that Formula One is in. The cars look pretty good this year. They still got weird noses on a couple of them, but the sound is just no. Everybody thought that they were going to get the 80s back with those big popping turbos and all that backfire, and we got vacuum cleaners. It's just sad.
Well, I'm prepared to see F1 die in my lifetime, because the decisions being made there, and I mean, it sucks that we're going on a tangent now about this, but the decisions being made from Frank Williams saying they can't have not privateer cars, but something like constructor cars where you could just buy one, kind of like how IndyCar teams buy from
Which is
Dallara each
sad
year.
because that's the way he got into the
Yeah.
sport.
Like, when you're so hypocritical that you don't even realize you want to outlaw how you got into the sport, you wonder what else happens, to what else is happening, what other decisions are being made that are along those lines of that kind of hypocritical garbage. And in the end of the day, you have stuff where the German Grand Prix is canceled this year.
Sad, sad state of affairs.
But moving on, and like I said, it's a slow news day, so we're kind of grasping at straws here. But we'll try and keep you entertained here on this Friday night. Chris, you just got back from trying iRacing's new Holden V8 Supercar, and I guess it's not really new, but it's the newer V8 Supercar. You just took it for a few laps around Sonoma's NASCAR Cup Road course. What'd you think?
I try it every build, and I try to be positive, and I can't be positive. There's just no redeeming quality to this car. It's supposed to be a new set of physics. It drives exactly the same as the old V8 Supercar did. The rear tires feel like they have McDonald's trays attached to it. There's no lateral grip. There's no front grip. There's no rear grip. There's absolutely nothing going on. But you have a tangent of people who keep saying that, oh, this is amazing. It's super difficult to drive. And that's how the real V8 Supercar drives. I don't think I've ever watched a real V8 Supercar race where at 25% throttle, the rear end just kicked out so far that you would think that the track just turned into like baby oil. It's pretty upsetting because I just keep trying to remain calm about the money that I've spent every single time I bought a piece of content on that game, and I have so much of it that's not even worth revisiting ever. I just don't understand how anyone could say that any of this is anywhere close to realistic. Now, I'm not saying all the cars, but the V8 Supercar has been a really, really big offender because it's something that I've really wanted to drive, and it's not even fun. It's just disappointing.
Now, did you at least chuck a setup at it or two just to see, like, even a form set or just your own tweaks to see if you could get it feeling better, even if it wasn't, the right values to throw in?
I've looked into a couple of different setups, and it's all felt just varying degrees of the rear sliding on me. There's nothing that makes the front end better. I've tried tweaking on my own. It's just nothing ever makes it better. And I've never felt, for as bad as some of the cars are on iRacing, I've never felt more disconnected to what's happening than I felt with the original V8 Supercar that was the Ford or the brand new Holden. It's just perplexing.
So how does it compare to some of the R Factor mods that are out there? Because, the V8 Factor Unleashed, and there's another one. I'm going to forget the name of it because I'm a terrible person, but there's a newer one that's based on the newer seasons that isn't V8 Factor, but it's still really good. How does it compare to some of the stuff you've driven in like R Factor and Race 07 for V8 Supercars?
Race 07 had, I believe, FVR.
That's what it's called.
And those cars were great. Were they probably a little bit easier than some of the real-life V8 Supercar physics? Maybe, but they got the big, heavy car feeling down. You would race them around, the brakes would be super hot, and you'd have no grip if you abused them under braking. I thought that there was just, for a mod, there was so much fun to be had with those cars that when you bought the iRacing version, you said that there's absolutely no way that this can't knock it out of the park, and I've just am a loss of words that people sit there and think that that's the way a V8 Supercar drives. Moving on, your favorite sim of all time, the game that you spent an unbelievable amount of time with, Project Cars, just went gold. Now, I know you've already taken off of work and you're going to have a little launch party at your home. Is this a sign that going gold may be a turnaround point for SMS?
Well, I got two people come to that Project Cars launch party, me and my left hand Jill. But in terms of going gold, is that a sign they turned around? Man, I don't know. You got to look at it this way: they never announced it would go gold. The other three release dates, so I guess this is a positive. But at the same time, it's like, okay, what company schedules these release dates and then has to change them again, and then has to change them again. I haven't checked out the WMD forums, not because I'm banned, because I got a buddy's account. Like, it's cool, guys. Like, somebody else gave me their info so I could log in and see what's going on. But I haven't really checked up on what's going on with glitches, because after a while it's going to get boring regurgitating the same story. But, to answer the question, is this a sign that they're moving in the right direction, turning things around? You know what? Maybe. Do I still think the game's going to come out and not be very good or not be what people would hope? Well, yeah. But at least they can say, hey, we're confident it's done. Here's our announcement that, yeah, it's done. It's in a state that we, feel comfortable shipping it off to you. Again, do I think it'll be good and people are going to like it? No. I mean, we have people who, actively play the not the closed beta, but the early access or whatever you want to call it, and they don't report anything earth-shattering. I mean, our guy that, we kind of rely on for info about P-Cars, his major thing when he jumps in and talks about the game to us, he says it's got that center pivot point that, the Sims of old used to have, and that's not very assuring because, unfortunately, once all the funky graphics die down and, people stop being wowed that, oh my god, the rain looks so good, like Kotaku and, the I guess, plebs you'd call them on different sites. Once they stop being wowed by the graphics, if the racing isn't convincing and it's just kind of bland and it doesn't really bring anything new to the table, well, people are going to move on. And unfortunately, I kind of am jacked at their career mode because they tried to do what Madden did with the Twitter feed and the kind of really connected career mode that make you feel like you're part of a world. I think that's really neat what they're doing with that, so I kind of really want to try it just to see how that aspect of it is, because we don't get career modes like those in racing games ever. It's been a while since we've even had the NASCAR Thunder career modes where you could do all the R&D and stuff like that. But the actual driving is what matters the most, and everything I've heard about it from trustworthy guys, from quick guys, from aliens, they've all just said, yeah, I did like 5 or 10 laps, and then I went back to playing AC because AC was better. Or, yeah, it's got that center pivot point feeling. But the dev team, I think them announcing that it's gone gold, I think it is a sign they've turned it around because they're finally confident in saying, yeah, man, it's done now. And I think that's really good for them to admit because they've made a lot of mistakes developing this game. Mistakes that we can go on for hours about because it's really a textbook what not to do. When you're building a video game and getting the fans involved, it was a big risk, and now they see why it was a big risk. And again, I don't think it's gonna be very good. There are good concepts in Project Cars, like the career mode and like the car and track list. I know people complain that it doesn't have enough American cars. Like I've seen the posts on Reddit, and I don't really think that's a valid complaint because what is in there is actually pretty impressive. But all that matters, for these games, unfortunately, is the driving. And from my little time spent with it, from our basically our beta testers or our buddies playing it, we haven't heard awe-inspiring things like the paid ads and magazines have talked about it. But at the end of the day, yeah, man, they turned it around and they were able to say, hey, it went gold and it's it's done now, and that's a big step, and it's more or less seeing how they handle the release, now that they've said it's done. Because it can go one of two ways. It can either be, oh no, game is crap, got a bunch of bugs like Shift 1 and 2, or, game's good, but, here's a couple complaints community have, or some stuff wasn't implemented, like maybe online will be broken, like, a lot of games are. But it's all how the developers proceed from this point, It's, now that they've said, hey, it's done, okay, that's momentum for them. They can use that to their advantage, and how they use that momentum, that's how it plays out.
Yeah, I've seen people suggest that they're going to break sales records. We'll see, won't we?
Sales records, come on now. I mean, for Forza and GT to break sales records, you got to understand they established a fan base. They established just ridiculous amounts of users. Really loving that game. I mean, you look at people who still play GT4. Still have their old GT4 photo mode pictures backed up, or guys who, still play, Forza or stuff like that. They established a culture around those brands, whereas Project Cars is just kind of the startup, it's the expansion team. It's, it's new, and if you rely, 100% on word of mouth, yeah, you still will sell pretty well, but sales records from established games, man, you won't touch. Sorry.
Well, we grasped at straws this evening, guys. Maybe we did a good job, maybe we didn't. But we do have a little bit of a surprise for you. Next week, we will do another in-depth retrospect of sorts, because it'll be a game that's been covered a lot in the past. We will give you a little bit of a hint. It costs a lot of money.
Oh no. Oh no.
Yes.
It's happening.
We're going to do a little bit of a retrospective, in-depth, good and bad, what we do, what we don't like, all those fun things. And we'll leave it up to your imagination. Have a good night, guys.
Yeah, man, get hyped for next week.